Okay, it should start now. Okay. Okay, so welcome all. This is our first meeting in 2022 and 68th BC Open discussion. Uh, there was a question around QR code in Business Central, so we'll be spending a good amount of time on that today. And during the meeting, if you think that it is important to kind of share that code, I'll make sure that it gets into GitHub if that's needed, and then we'll go forward from there. Okay, so let me move this. Okay, so people who are here for the first time or not a default attendee, they go to this link every week and register. Normally, this link gets updated after this meeting or by max by tomorrow. And otherwise, if you are in the meeting and you don't want to get into hassle of registering every week, then drop your name and email into the chat, and I'll make sure you are invited going forward. Okay, so what's happening? We haven't met for a few weeks, but DynamicsCon is in line, and the voting will start on 10th, which is on Monday, and the session submission is over. There are very great session. The conference is actually on March 15th and 22, and there's super great sessions title that are registered, and let's quickly have a look because it's important that we do vote and attend those. So let me open that and see the submitted sessions. So this time in Business Central domain, it seems as in the things that I liked more or less is Waldo is talking about sorry, Jeremy is talking about BC development. Then this is, I guess, about telemetry. Then if you are into Business Central SaaS, then there are some tools, I guess, that somebody's showing. And OAuth, it'll become super important if you don't know the username password is going away, and all these integration will work only with OAuth. So it's super important to understand how this works. Upgrading limitations and workarounds about upgrading. That's another important thing, at least for me. And then think before you commit Azure Blob Service API. If you're dealing with files and all using Azure, then that's something for you. Low code workflows in Dynamics Business Central, which is more about Power Automate and Power Apps. So that's something to attend. APIs, I guess there was something else. Okay. Object programming to be extension ready. Now that need to be seen what that topic is all about. I haven't read much. Someone from India is talking about test automation. Then this is the consultant role. And then there is new email feature, which becomes the only option starting next release, which is March. So it's important if you haven't played with the new email interface, you should start using it. I would seriously recommend every developer to kind of attend this. This is around developing an AL guideline initiative for developers. So it's super important from Waldo, if you can. Then Mohana is presenting about Business Central SaaS environment restrictions, how you can do it. I didn't have much time to think. I just submitted it last minute. So I'll be talking about report if it gets selected, just how to develop reports in Business Central. APIs for creating custom APIs. There is a lot to be seen there. It's not just creating a page and giving it a type of API, but there's a lot goes behind the scene when you create an API. So it's super important to understand because that's the only option more or less around integrations. So it's important to understand how that all works if you have to create a custom API. And what else? Training and maintaining the knowledge of your team, which seems super important. We always see this kind of different level of expertise in the team around AL for sure and around Business Central, because the changes are happening super fast. So super important. Implementing permissions, I don't know it's technical or not, but if you don't know, the permissions are also going to change in the next release. They'll not be supported as XML. There is an object which we have talked about in past about permission set object and permission extension. So if you are developing extensions for your customers who are on Business Central SaaS and or Prem, starting Business Central 20, you'll have to rewrite those. So start learning that and updating those permissions. What else? Best practices for implementation. Okay. Creating multiple dependent extension. That's interesting because we have talked about it so many times. I don't know what the content would be, but that's more or less it. So yeah, starting Monday, the voting starts and everybody gets, I don't know how many votes, 5 or 10 votes, I don't remember. But do vote for your sessions that you like, and then we'll see when on 19th, when the last day of voting ends, what are the results and which sessions will be there. Okay. Let's move ahead to questions. And the first one is a repeat of the last week, which I talked about last week. Then I got a reply, which makes sense. Now, based on what I understood by reading this and the suggestion that I gave, and let's maybe spend a little more time into it. So what happens with the new email module is when you send an email with an attachment, that attachment actually gets saved into one of the system table, which is the table 20,184. And the problem that is being described that they heavily use emailing invoices to their customers. And that process have increased their database size to 36 GB in just 3 weeks, which is a huge addition in the database size when you think from the BC SaaS perspective, for sure. So what I was thinking about it is that they can put it on the retention policy table, which was an option in the base release, where you can set up the retention policies on tables, and this is one of the table that you can purge based on a defined time, like this one, that after 1 week delete the records from this table. But surprisingly, when I tested it and the person who requested it also tested it, we found out that it only deletes the record from the send email table. It doesn't delete the attachment which is attached to that particular record in this tenant table, which seems a little bit confusing why Microsoft will not do that. And maybe that's an idea that we need to submit to Microsoft just to kind of save the space, that at least on tables which are here, it should do a delete true rather than a delete record from that table. So while this idea kind of gets in, and I don't know when I'll be able to put it into the idea website, the suggestion for that person would be to write a code unit which does a delete all kind of a retention policy thing, delete true kind of retention policy, and do it manually by writing a code unit and saying any record which have a age or which was created on this particular date, then delete true of that record, which eventually will delete the attachment which is attached to that record. But retention policy does not do that, which is surprising. And I didn't thought that this will work that way, but that seems to be working that way. Any questions on that one before we move to the next item? And I was trying to see it and I haven't actually seen it in the code. So let's have a quick look into it, into the environment. Let's see what the code unit is which runs this. There is a job queue that's created, when you start using retention policy, that is 3997. Okay, so retention is not part of the base app. I think it's part of the system app. Okay. Okay. So let's try to find this code unit and see what I'm thinking is correct or not about retention policy job queue. Okay. Log entries, telemetry. And I don't see that table. That's weird. Code unit. That seems weird. Hmm. This is installer. Apply retention policy.
Can't we see it in the object list?
I haven't created symbols for this, so I don't know that I'll be able to do a object designer into it. I doubt, but let's give it a try. No, it needs to have symbol, sir, corrected. And the reason I didn't do a symbol connection because there are .NET controls into it, so it kind of goes into that route. Hmm. But okay, I'll check that. Let's not waste time into it. I'll
Uh,
see where
Can't
that
we
code
use
unit.
a simple code unit, the simple app, and then put a reference to this code unit and can scroll
Okay,
through it?
let's try that. Let me see if I have the. Okay, let's do this. Okay. What's that? Retention policy view.
We can even give the number.
Here it is. Now, what it does, it says this is session ID, apply retention policy, and retention policy log info. Hmm. Okay. So on run, it's doing what? This job queue, retain bind subscriber of this, and then start the session ID, and then that's it. Huh?
Code unit dot run apply retention policy.
Apply retention policy. Code unit done run. Oh man, apply retention policy implementation. Okay. Okay, retention policy setup. Get my system ID and then apply retention policy, which goes into enable true, find set, dialog hide sequential, open. Apply retention policy, suppress error, allow error to bubble up, or save apply retention policy. Code unit on. Oh man, this is
Enjoy.
going into loops and loops and loops. Okay, get by system ID, total number of record deleted, number of record deleted. Deleted. Hmm. What is this, man? It goes back into that. Hmm. I'll have to kind of debug this maybe to understand what's happening. But yeah, I'm pretty sure about it because I did test it because the minimum time that you can set on a retention policy is 7 days and or 5 days, I guess. And I did set it up and I was not able to see a decrease in the record in that table, count into that table, which was surprising, but I don't know why they did that. It's doing it with directive. I'll debug this and see where it is actually written. Let's not waste time into this. Okay, save. Okay, so let's delete this. Okay, so let's move ahead and we will come back to this. I guess I'll check this and come back to you guys. The next question was super interesting, and I did check for it on internet, and then I was trying to kind of build it, and then I found something interesting. So I thought that's interesting to know what Microsoft is doing in the base app. Now here, what the person want to do is want to apply a QR code on the sales invoice, and he's trying to do it. He's getting it into the text format, and it shows it as an image. Uh, it's not showing it as an image, and he cannot scan it. And then I was reading some blogs just to kind of suggest him how to do it, if that makes sense. And then when I started doing it last week, I actually see something in the base app which was super interesting. So let's start doing that and see what's available in the base app. So now, just to keep it simple, we'll build a very simple base report using the AL file wizard, and we will create a report and we'll call it, let's say, fix, and let's say sales invoice, just to keep it single, and sales invoice header, and then let's add it into reports. Let's add some field. Let's have an amount field, a number field, maybe a location field, and what else we'll need. Okay, let's take order number if required, and then let's take a date field also. Okay, posting date, and that's it, I guess. Let's take an external document numbers also so that we can see is it changing or not. And if you guys have the QR code scanner with you, that'll be great. We'll test it after this. But while I was scanning the sales invoice header table, I found this field called QR code. And this is part of the base Microsoft product now. And I don't know when it was added, but I'm pretty sure it was not there in the NAV word for sure. Till Business Central 14, it was not there. And as soon as I saw it, I thought to kind of scan the base app to identify what need to be done with this QR code. So let's see. This is my more or less report into it, and let me change the name so that it doesn't give me this yellow sign. And I'm not kind of contesting against people who have given the solutions based on the custom API calls and all, HTTP calls and all, because that's all possible, and we all know that for a fact. But it was interesting that Microsoft is adding these features, and it was never kind of said openly in any release note. So let's add a filter here. Let's filter fields on, let's say, number, just to keep it simple. We have these fields, and I don't need a request page, and I don't need an action. Okay, so let's eliminate this section. So now if I look into the base app just to see the references of this, how this is working, because this is interesting that they have it, and base application. So on the sales invoice header table, if I look on the QR code, there's a field of type blob. So that means it will eventually store an image if required, more or less. When you do a where use of this, or find all references against this, you'll find the e-invoicing section, which does the scanning of documents and things like that, will have some references to this field, and only that area have some references to this field. So let's see what it finds, and then we'll kind of take that from there and try to put it into this report just to see that the QR code is generated or not. Okay. So if you see, it's added into this report here. It has a calci field in the report, and then it's also added into the column, which we have already added. But that's all the references in this report. But then when you go into this code unit, here there is a section which creates a QR code. Now what it does, it calls this function create QR code, which needs a input value and a reference of the temp blob code unit, and that value is created by this earlier function called create QR code input. If I look at it, this is a function which is trying to generate a QR code based on some static fields or some fixed fields. Those are written, and then it returns that text string back to the calling function, which is the input document. And then that is used by the Microsoft method here to create QR code. Okay. Here they reference to this library, invoice object library, and then calls the get barcode blob. And then based on this method, it actually generates the QR code. Now, as I said earlier, I'm not against to all these third-party APIs which are available, and you can always call them if required. There are some free ones also which are available. But other than that, what is interesting, it's available in the base Microsoft. So it makes sense that if it changes in the future, we don't have to change the logic or the engine. Plus, you might have to pay to an external third party service if you want to calculate a QR code, which I don't know how much are the charges or not. But because it's available in the base, it makes sense to kind of use it rather than looking into anything else. So let's try to apply this and see what it generates. Okay, so let me copy this as it is. And the other one we'll create based on our needs. So we have copied the create QR code thing as it is. Now we need to kind of call this. So this, for some crazy reason, it's giving it only a text of 95 character, and I'm hoping that's limitation of this. Okay. So we need to make sure that any input string that we are giving. And Sandeep sir, you have a question? Sorry.
Yeah, in fact, Mexico localization has this functionality of QR code for quite a long time, and
Oh,
it's available in all the base versions as well. And if it is not, then you can simply copy the DLL from there. The problem is it's a DLL base, so that means it will work on on-prem and it will not work on SaaS. So for SaaS, they have made this function.
yeah, because this is Business Central SaaS sandbox. So let's test it out. I'm hoping that it'll work, but let's see if it doesn't. But that's interesting to know that it was available in the Mexican version, which I didn't knew. Okay, so to kind of create the input document, let's create the similar kind of function, QR code input. And instead of going a little bit crazy over there, I'll just pass the sales invoice header so that I can use any field if I want. Okay, and this should kind of return the string that I want of whatever this document need, which is of text 95. Okay, so with this, I'll have a reference to my sales invoice header, and now I can just start sending the values back into the function the way I wanted. So let's give it a name so that I don't have to define the variable input. Okay. Now let's set this based on whatever fields you need, and you can change it the way you want it. So I want on my input document, let's say the document number. So let's do copy star of my sales invoice header dot number of 1 to 20. It will be max to 20. So 20 is here. I have 75 characters left. Let's add the date into it. Date, posting date. Okay. And then also let's add into an amount field. Okay. Sales invoice header dot amount. Okay, that gives me that. And let's add one more field that we can well, that'll be more than sufficient, I guess. Let's add only these. So this one will generate that string and it will be returned to, we'll have to call these methods. So let's add it here on a trigger, which is on after get record. Once the record is fetched, let's try to call the function create QR code input, and I'll give sales invoice header reference. It will return a text, so let's store it somewhere. Okay, simple. And so now with this, I have the string that I want to convert into a QR code based on this. And then I'll call the create QR code method, which needs a QR text, and then it needs a temp blob. Let's define that. Now temp blob is no longer a table. It's a reference to a code unit of temp blob. Now, once this method executes, it will return the QR code into this temp blob because this is set as pass by reference. And is your hand again raised, Sandeep sir, or is it from the last time? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was for the last time, but I corrected. But again, what is the object number of this e-invoice object factory?
That's a good question. Let's have a look into it.
Because this is not available in normal version, Indian version
Oh,
at least.
it's
Localization
10147. Oh, it's a
10,000.
North American. Yeah, it's a North American localization, it seems. And yeah, you are correct. These all are .NET references into it. Okay, that seems fair enough that there are third-party services that need to be using this if you are not on-prem for a country where this localization does not exist. But I think this is something that Microsoft should move into the kind of W1 or the baseline app because that this seems a pretty common requirement these days. Now, once I have it into the temp blob, I want to assign it to this field on my sales invoice called QR code. So what I can do is actually do it using the rec ref. So let's do a record ref. And the methods has been changed by introducing this code unit. So if you do a record ref dot the get table that you have for sales invoice header, and then if you do the temp blob dot, there is a record ref method to record ref, which needs a record ref and the field number. So you can just pass the record reference that you have, and the field number would be sales invoice header dot the field number of QR code. And then you can just do the record ref dot set table. And this will set that value into that field. And once it is set, we can surely do a calc field. Of QR code. Okay. Now with this, I'm assuming that what happened to this? Okay, the order is not correct. So with this, I'm assuming that this will store the QR code into the variable, and then we'll be able to use it into the report if required. Let's quickly add a layout, a simple one, just a QR code field, so that we can see it. And we all, I think, know about it, that you need to set the default layout of type RDLC, and then layout RDLC layout, and you need to define a path where you want to store it in your directory. And of course, like the root folder, which is this folder, and then inside this I have this, let me see, yeah, inside this I have this src, inside this I have this reports, and then I need to give it a name. Now this file does not exist, but once you build the solution, Control Shift B, it creates a file like this, which is linked to this file based on this property. Now you can open this externally, which will open it into the report builder if you have it installed. And that's where we are. I'll just add the page header and I'll insert an image that is from the database based on the QR code field of type JPEG. Okay, all look good. And let's increase it so that I can scan it later. Okay. I don't need anything on the body of the report or anything. Let's add the details so that we can match it while we are comparing this. Okay, let me set the can go to false, and let me add all the fields that we have added into the QR code just to keep it simple. Okay, so the fields that I have added into the data set here are the invoice number, posting date, and amount. So we have the number here, we have the amount here, and we have the posting date here. Okay, let me change the formats. Date, this one is number, and this is default. Okay, so let's save this. Let me delete this. Okay, let's get saved here, and coming back to my VS Code, I should be able to publish this now into my Docker environment of C19. Okay. Okay, what is the report name? Sales invoice. Okay. Now that's being said, let's, what happened? Didn't like me. Okay. It liked me now. Okay. Sales invoice, let's pick one. This is this, and let's do a preview. Now this is the QR code for this. Now I know for a fact that there is a website where you can save the QR code and then scan it there, which is this, I guess. You can scan an image here. So what I'll do is I'll take a screenshot of this and I'll save this sample. Okay, now let's scan it here. That my desktop has a sample, and then it's a QR code. So when you click OK, it'll scan that QR code and give you the details that are stored in that. So it gives me the invoice number, I guess. Let's see, PSNB 00216 till here. Then it gives me the date of 4/12/21, and then 1000.80 is this. So that's how you can achieve it. And but as Sandeep said, it's more or less around North America and Mexico, where this is part of the base app. But this is interesting that they don't have it anywhere else. It seems a little bit odd. But this is the code unit that's doing this 10147. So what else can be done if somebody else have to use it? They cannot use it for SAS for sure because of the .NET references.
Well, maybe you could definitely create a URL to the invoice from the QR code.
Yeah, you can. As in whatever things you want to provide, it's just a plain text that you can give here on this section which we added in this report, the input document. If you have to send an URL like a tracking info, right, to a third party vendor which is handling your shipping and all, and you can just generate that based on that QR code. That's also possible. But yeah, I didn't thought about it, but it's an interesting fact that it's not available for all the countries at this point, and it should be because it's in the North American range at this point. But yeah, otherwise there are for sure third-party services that you can use as by calling them by using HTTP request, and they will do the needful in the same way. They'll return you a stream or a blob which you then can store into your streams and upload into the database if required. But will they charge for it? I'm exactly not sure about it, how much that charge would be. But I'm pretty sure there are like this one, there would be others which can convert a QR code or a normal code to a QR text to a QR code. Okay, then I had one more question. Let me see where that is, where the slide deck is, and then we'll talk about things if time permits. The next one was around automated testing. And this is interesting because I'm super interested into writing automated tests for all the extension that we develop as partners. Because if you have customers on SaaS, it becomes a huge lifesaver in these major updates when you don't have to kind of have any human intervention during testing when you have to change a process because of features being deprecated and all. Now the question is around, is automated testing is dependent on ISV test script? And I have an ISV code and I have customizations on it. Now I want to write test for only my code changes. Is it possible to do, or do I need to have a test script for ISV first? Now, in theory, or not just in theory, but in practical, if you also think about it, what a test script does, it first creates a data that supports your test scenario. Now, forgot about ISV, but if you have created a field, let's say on the sales line, and that field should be available on your customer ledger entry. To test your customization, you will also have to test the base Microsoft code, if that makes sense, because you will have to create a sample customer, you'll have to create a sample item, you'll have to create some setups, and these all are Microsoft things. And once all that is created, then you can create a order based on all that input variables. You'll also have to create posting setups and all for sure. And when that order actually gets posted, which is again a Microsoft thing, you will be able to kind of compare your value that was given during the creation of sales order and what's the value that is available on the customer ledger. So not just the ISV, even if you're testing the Microsoft code, you will have to take care of the scenario and generate that data which is required to complete that whole end-to-end process. So if it's an ISV, and you can pick any ISV who is doing any kind of thing, let's say if somebody is doing a credit card processing for you and you have to test it. or somebody is doing a requisition for you and you have to test it, you will have to generate that data. Now, will ISV provide their test script to you? That's still, I think it's a no right now, and I don't know the reason, but I haven't had any success till now to get an test script from ISV, and I'm pretty sure they have it because that's one of the mandate that used to be one of the mandate when ISV have to deploy their apps on app source. It is, I'm not sure it is still required or not, but earlier it was required to have a automated test script for your ISVs if you want to publish them in app source. But I have tried it with 3 4 ISVs and they have always rejected that question or said no, we cannot share it, and I don't understand why. But they will not, they if they are sharing it, that's great. If they are not, you will still have to test the process, and for that you will have to uh, kind of create the data to support the flow that you are trying to test. Any questions or thoughts into this one on automated test? Okay, so that was all the questions this week, but then I wanted to talk about what we want to
May I
talk.
interrupt?
Yeah, please.
Well, I was just checking. Indian localization has also provided QR code generator,
Oh,
but
good.
unfortunately, it is also doing it the very same way that it is using a .NET code.
But if it
No?
is part of the base app, then it
Should I
doesn't
show?
matter. Yeah, yeah, why not?
I'm sharing my screen.
Okay.
Uh, Let us see this. Um, this is one app, QR generator for
Mm-hmm.
Indian version. And
Cool.
when I go here, it says QR. Let me just increase the font.
Mm-hmm.
So it says QR generator dot generate QR code, and it has given QR generator as a code unit.
Code unit.
But again, I can't go there. I will have to go to here. I don't know why.
Hmm.
Go to definition. It also uses the very same thing.
Okay, but
I'm
that's okay. If
copying.
even if it is using the .NET, it is not tagged as on-prem. So you can still use it if your customer is in SaaS.
Is it?
Yeah, until unless on top of your function it says on-prem, and you should always see the file management code unit, which is a great example how the methods are tagged. So if you look into the file management code unit, and if you want, I can share my screen and show it to
Yeah,
you.
please, please.
Okay, so let me share it again and let me know when you guys can see it. So what happens is Microsoft have created these different tags that they use to define what method you can and what you cannot. So like mgmt and code unit, file management. And it's not just about .NET using or not, but if you come down here and if your method does not have a scope on prem, and that's what limits you.
Okay.
So now the extension that I'm building right now, or the extension that we were working on, was targeted on a cloud sandbox. But if I try to do, let's say, file management dot this, it'll start giving me a error that cannot be used because it's tagged as on-prem. So it'll only be supported if I change my app.json setting to make it on-prem.
Just a small update. This is available on SaaS as well.
Yeah,
I can
that's what
see
I'm
it.
saying. Yeah, you can. And you can use it without any restrictions until unless it is tagged as on-prem. And that's what I would say. But until unless, even if it's .NET, they are doing their bit. They're managing that show. It's up to them. But until unless it is tagged as a scope on-prem, you can freely use it, even if it uses .NET on a SaaS with SaaS customers.
Great.
So yeah, whatever limitations are is based on what is the scope of that particular method.
And Microsoft is increasing the prices based upon this tag from
Yes,
2023.
we did talk
You
about
showed
it
that,
on
huh?
the.
You showed that,
I guess I showed it, but yeah,
um, and they've
let's
named it something like universal coding something.
let me find that out. I have that image somewhere with me.
We have got a meeting by Microsoft in the coming week where they're going to
Yeah,
that from 23 their prices will increase.
yes, here it is. Non-universal code is what it is called.
Yes.
And there are two reasons of you being non-universal. One, you have modified the base app, which I've said all the time. You should not. The second reason is that your app.json has a property of set to be on-prem. In that case, your customer, and I'm hoping this, I don't know anything about it, but I'm hoping the only way to implement it is adding a new module into the customer license when they are purchasing it. So if your customer is on-prem and you have developed a extension which is only for on-prem, or if you have modified their base app, then you will have to going forward pay the customer will have to pay per year fees based on full users that they have, premium and essential. This is per user per year fees that will be charged to customer because their extension is not cloud ready. It doesn't mean that there is a end date to on-prem, but what it means that, and we have talked about it in the past, but what it means is Microsoft is trying to eliminate partners as a blocker for a customer to go to SaaS. So with
More than
this,
that, it will also bring standardization, I believe.
right, and then it makes it easier for Microsoft to kind of remove those codes going forward as they see that people are not having or not paying this fees. If people are paying this, then they'll have to keep it. But they just want to eliminate any kind of barriers for customers to go to SaaS. And this was one of the biggest barrier where they wanted some of the customer wanted to go to SaaS, but their extensions or their base app was modified. So, as Sandeep sir said, starting 2022, two new additional modules in the license are coming up, which is
Sorry,
module.
23.
Yeah, as in the modules will be available. It will be charged from 23, but the modules will get added from 2022, which is
Okay.
for the first year it will be zero priced, but going forward they will be charged. And that will be decided based on two settings. One is your base app is modified or not, and the second one is on your app.json is your what is that property target. It's set to on-prem. So some people, I know for a fact, some developers are a little bit confusing in their thought that because our customer is on-prem, we should set the target on-prem. That's not it. This is only set to use any method which is targeted or scoped as on-prem, like we just saw into this file management code unit. Until unless you have actually using any kind of references to methods which are tagged as on-prem, you should go and review the property on your app.json. Is it set to on-prem? If it is, just try to remove it. And if you have any references like this, you will see error message down here. But yeah, it's a good reminder. Microsoft is going to talk about it. This was announced in Directions EMI, if I'm not wrong, and that's where from this screenshot came from. So keep an eye on your customers extension that you have built in now. Is there anyone where you have tagged by mistake or intentionally target as on-prem? Okay. So anything else, or I just wanted to open this one up for kind of suggestions for going forward. I didn't have much to think about, but anything else? I guess Sam, you were saying something last time, and I forgot because we have been meeting for a very after a very long time.
I don't think so.
Okay. Anything else, anyone, that we should be talking about going forward? And I'll try to cover it if I can.
Yeah,
Saurabh,
Saurabh,
I
Let's go one by one. Fauzan, go ahead.
right. We talked about common discussion platform. I'm not sure where we headed towards that. Like the
Um,
um combined sort of platform where developers can help each other out during the week. Obviously, if there's something we want to discuss that we are open to discuss in the BC open discussion, but anything else related to development point of view. We talked about this earlier in 2021.
yeah, I was thinking about it, and I'm actually waiting for a scenario which we can. Should we do something where we code together? Maybe, I don't know. I'll still have to think about it. Maybe using a source control and then, maybe review it as we do it. And I'm okay, open for that if everyone thinks that sounds interesting.
Yeah, like a collab project.
Okay, let me think about some scenario, Fazan, and maybe once in a month we will do those kind of sessions.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm writing down. And yes, Vijay sir, you are saying something?
yeah, Saurabh, please add a session for source control, how to sync your VS Code project to Azure DevOps.
From where we wanted it, kind of setting it up from that perspective, or just once it is set up and you have to kind of what activities you have to follow there.
Well, branching will be another thing within that. How to
Okay,
manage it, merge the code, and then if you can possibly show CI/CD with
okay,
build agent, that would be great. So I'm just short of the CI/CD. Rest everything I have configured working fine. My team is already using it,
great.
but CI/CD I've not been able to get time to deploy it.
Yeah, for CI/CD, I'll have to check. I need an Azure server which is kind of used to kind of build these Docker containers behind the scene. That's how it is done. But let me check. If I get some resources, I'll surely set it up.
Just let me know in case you need resources. I can make it available.
Okay, that sounds good. Thanks, man. So, Vijay, you want it from the beginning, or just as Sandeep said, is saying that it's set up and you just want to understand how the sync and other processes are done?
Yeah, it's okay what Sandeep sir said from the
Okay, sounds good. Anyone else? Anything else?
Saurav, you used report wizard when you created the report, right?
Did I? I don't remember, but maybe, yeah, that's possible. For a simple report, you can do that.
So is there any extension for that or
Oh, the wizard in VS Code? Yes, there is an ALAZ extension. And let me find my code here. So there is an extension, and if you don't know it, the best one is to find out the Worldos pack. There is a Worldo pack, which is I recommend everyone to have it. It called AL extension pack, and it have all the most commonly used great extensions which are developed for AL developers only. Like there is one. Let me walk you through around what I use. Okay. The one is the variable helper, which I don't use much, but I surely use this one. ALAZ. It has so many commands which are very useful. Like the wizard that you show, it helps you to kind of extract your code to different methods. It helps you with adding prefixes, adding suffixes in your code if you have written it without suffix and prefix. All the wizards that we just saw are part of ALAZ. And let me see if I can see it. Yeah, so there's a symbol browser, there is an symbol tree, AL code generators, uh, action image. It shows you all the images that are available in Business Central. and documentation and all. And you can see all this here. So that's one in this. The other one, I'm pretty sure everybody's using it, called AL Object Designer, which you just saw. Then there is the other one called AL Toolbox. It also have great commands like some stored snippets, regions, code cop warnings, and then he keeps on adding things into it, which is super cool. What else is here? I normally use this one so much, which makes it easier to create a new GUID, which is just, it just adds one more command called create GUID in your Control Shift P window, and it returns you a GUID if required. VS Code icon, it gives you the icons for your file. Then if you are into Dockers, then it shows you everything in here. You don't have to go out to scan your Docker containers and all. It just shows you everything here. So I have just one container, and then I have these three images on my local. Then if you are into Git, then Git length shows you the history, who modified it when, who committed when, and all. So these two are around Git. If you are into PowerShell, and that's a good reminder of PowerShell. So I was reading about what's going away in 20 BC 21, and this is for on-prem customer. Microsoft is removing the what we call as our fancy I forgot the name, the the place from where we start and stop services. I forgot that. Let me go there. So
Administration panel.
yes, so this panel will not be available going forward, starting uh, version 21. So if you are not into PowerShell, it's time to learn PowerShell, at least for Business Central. So this panel will be removed in next September release, and you will only have access via code, which is the PowerShell code, if you have to restart a service or if you have to change a parameter within a service or any other kind of changes into this panel. So this panel is going away completely.
Oh, that's fine, really.
Yeah. It's fine.
No.
If you are into snippets, which is super cool, it helps you to kind of create some code segment which you keep on using repeatedly. Then you should have the snippet creator. It just saves those snippet into your workspace, and then you just use it whenever you need it. uh, I surely like the to-do highlights. It helps me. It used to help me. I don't know how much it'll help me now. When while during testing, because I'm part of the upgrade team, when I bring the legacy code, and for a fact, I knew that after I have deployed the extension, I knew that this field should have been increased, which or decreased, which I cannot do because it will be a destructive change till BC 18. Then I used to use the to-do highlight, and it gives you a tree structure here about things that you have to do in future. So you can just come here and see, oh, these are the areas that I have to go back and check. This is called to do tree, and it shows you everything where you have highlighted the to do or fix me keywords. REST client, we have seen in past, it helps you to make your HTTP calls and all without going into external solutions, and you can do it from within there. AL code actions is also kind of the similar thing as we have talked about in past. It also has some commands. And then I haven't used it, but I know for a fact that this is super cool AL object ID Ninja. People who are working with source control should surely watch this video from Vijaco, yeah, and see how this is configured. But it helps in an environment where multiple developers are working and they don't want to overlap in object ID. So it actually scans a multi-branching structure and gives you that, oh, you cannot use 50,000 because this has been taken by, let's say, Rishikesh, or you cannot use 50,002 because that's taken by Sam. So it gives you a unique ID based on all the people who are working on that project, so that you don't have to say, oh, Vijay, use 50,000 to 50,005, and Rishikesh, use 60,000 to 60,005, and you will never overlap. So do watch it. There's a YouTube recording from Vijayko about it, how to set it up. So it's super cool if you are on a multi-environment thing. And then this is kind of your comparison tool, which compares two file if you have to do it. So these are the set, and what we saw into the wizard is part of this ALAZ. What it does is you come into here and you can just right click anywhere and say wizard, and you can choose any type of object. It also now include permission set and permission set extensions, which is cool. And then when you say, let's say table, it gives you the old CAL style thing where you can type in your fields and all. Okay. Rishikesh, does that answer your question?
100%.
Okay, thanks. Anything else, anyone?
Yeah, when would this recording be available?
Tomorrow, most probably by tomorrow. Oh, for sure by tomorrow. I normally what happens is it breaks sometime for I don't know what reasons, and then on Sunday I had to merge these. So sometime it comes in 3 parts or 2 part. But tomorrow or by max by Monday morning India time, it should be there. If it doesn't break into multiple parts, it'll be available tomorrow. Otherwise, Monday for sure.
All right, great, thank you.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? Okay, if not, I guess we are at end of our time and see you next week then.
Again, thank you, Sarava, and Happy New Year.
Okay, Happy New Year, man. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Bye.
Thanks, Saurabh.
Thanks.
Thank you, Saurav. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, bye.
Saurav, do you have time?
Yes, sir.